Chapter 2. The Library. Beneath the library. Marcus Vale did not sleep after the night the earth answered him. He drove home with mud on his boots, river water spilled across the passenger floor, and the copper coil still warm in the backpack beside him. Every few miles he glanced over at it, half expecting the thing to glow again. It did not. That almost made it worse, because the silence left room for doubt. By sunrise, Marcus was sitting on the edge of his bed in the same clothes, staring at the tuning fork on his kitchen table. A rational man would have called it stress. A lonely man would have called it imagination. A frightened man would have buried the whole thing under beer, television, and jokes about needing sleep. But Marcus had heard the ground hum back, and once you hear the earth answer, ordinary life becomes impossible. He picked up the tuning fork. It looked stupid in daylight. A simple piece of metal, no jewels, no runes, no ancient mystery, just a cheap silver fork he had bought from an estate sale box labeled Misk. Marcus struck it against the edge of the table. The note rang bright and clean. Nothing happened. No spiral in the water glass, no golden veins lighting up behind his eyes, no doorway opening in the kitchen. Just a tired man in a cheap apartment holding a vibrating piece of metal. He lowered it slowly. "So what was different?" he whispered. The answer came from memory before reason, alignment, not the word people threw around online when they wanted to sound spiritual. Real alignment, place, time, element, frequency, intention, a system, a lock. The night before, he had not broken reality. He had entered the right combination. That meant it could be repeated. Marcus grabbed a notebook from the floor and opened to a fresh page. At the top, he wrote, "The event." Then, underneath, location, ley convergence from 1938 survey map. Date, spring alignment window. Time, approximately 2:13 a.m. Elements present, copper, quartz, salt, iron, river water, flame, ash, breath. Sound source, silver tuning fork. Observed results, ground resonance, water spiral, quartz luminescence, visual perception of ley grid, spatial distortion. He paused, then added one more line. Emotional state, desperate, honest, afraid. That bothered him. The old texts had warned him. The operator was part of the experiment, not as some sentimental slogan, but as a real variable. Alchemy did not reward performance. It responded to truth, and that was dangerous, because truth was the one ingredient Marcus could not fake. By noon, he was back at the library, not the public computers, not the front desk, not the comfortable chairs where retirees read newspapers and teenagers pretended to study. He went straight to the local history room, then down the narrow stairwell behind it, the one marked "Authorized Personnel Only." The first time he had found it, 3 months earlier, he had expected someone to stop him. No one did. Modern security was strange that way. The forbidden places were not guarded by swords or spells anymore. They were guarded by confidence, bureaucracy, and the assumption that nobody cared enough to look. At the bottom of the stairs was a beige hallway lit by a dying fluorescent bulb. The air smelled like paper, dust, and old rain. Marcus passed the storage carts, the broken copier, the locked archive cage, and the shelf of city directories nobody had touched in decades. Then he stopped at the door with no label. He had noticed it weeks ago. He had never opened it, not because he could not, because he was afraid it might open. Today, fear felt less like a wall and more like a toll. He turned the handle. The door clicked. Inside was a small room colder than the hallway. No windows, no desk. Just filing cabinets, stacked boxes, and a rolling shelf packed tight with books whose spines had faded into shades of brown and gray. Marcus stepped in and pulled the chain light. The bulb flickered awake. On the far wall, someone had carved a symbol into the plaster, a circle, a cross, a triangle, and beneath it 3 words scratched so faintly he had to lean close to read them. As below, listen. His chest tightened, not as above, so below. This was different. A correction. A command. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone to take a picture. The screen went black. "Of course," he muttered. He pressed the power button. Nothing. No battery warning, no shutdown animation, just dead glass. Marcus slipped it back into his pocket and turned toward the filing cabinets. The first was full of tax maps. The second held railroad surveys. The third was locked. The fourth drawer opened with a metal groan. Inside were folders labeled in a typewriter font. Water table studies, 1911 church bell frequencies, county records, unexplained, compass errors, Northridge Indigenous Earthworks, partial notes, private correspondence, E. Halden. Marcus froze at the last folder, E. Halden. The name had appeared once in a book from 1904, in a footnote about magnetical curiosities of the Missouri line. The author had dismissed Halden as an eccentric surveyor with religious ideas about geology. That was usually how history buried dangerous people. It did not call them wrong. It called them eccentric. Marcus pulled the folder free and opened it on a stack of boxes. The first page was a letter, written in dark brown ink. May 3rd, 1913. To the one who comes after. Marcus stopped breathing. He read the line again. To the one who comes after, not to whom it may concern. Not dear sir. It felt aimed. He kept reading. You will have already discovered that the lines are not lines. This is the first deception. They are currents, and they move as all living things move. Slowly, cyclically, intelligently. You will have also discovered that the earth does not answer curiosity. Curiosity opens the door, but hunger turns the key. Marcus swallowed. Hunger. That was the word no modern spiritual teacher liked to use. They talked about peace, surrender, abundance, light. But the old alchemists wrote about hunger like it was sacred fire, not greed, not obsession, hunger, the ache that made a man move. Do not be ashamed that you came seeking gold, the letter continued. Every true alchemist begins with a lesser desire. Gold is not the sin. Mistaking gold for the destination is the sin. Marcus felt the words move through him like something alive. He sat on an overturned crate. Metal is condensed obedience. Matter is habit. Time is rhythm. Space is agreement. Change the rhythm, break the agreement, and habit becomes negotiable. He laughed once quietly. There it was, not metaphor, instruction. He turned the page. A hand-drawn diagram covered the next sheet. 4 circles marked the corners of a larger square. Fire, water, air, earth. At the center was a spiral. Around the spiral were notes written in cramped handwriting. Element establishes field. Sound instructs field. Operator stabilizes field. Lay current supplies force. Shadow determines distortion. Marcus tapped the last line. Shadow determines distortion. That was not comforting. Beneath the diagram was another paragraph. You must understand this before attempting passage. The line does not carry the man he pretends to be, it carries the man he is. If there is fracture in him, the passage will fracture. If there is deceit in him, the destination will deceive him. If there is fear in him, fear will choose the door. The room seemed to get colder. Marcus looked at the dead phone in his pocket, then at the carved words on the wall, as below. Listen. He understood now why the shadow work mattered. It was not moral decoration, it was navigation. If he lied to himself, the ley lines would not punish him. They would simply obey the lie and send him where that lie belonged. A sound came from behind the door. Marcus turned. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming down the hall. He closed the folder halfway, listening. The footsteps stopped outside the room. The handle moved. Marcus stood very still. The door opened. An old woman stood in the doorway with a ring of keys in her hand and a library badge clipped to her cardigan. Her hair was silver and pinned tightly behind her head. Her glasses hung from a chain around her neck. She looked less surprised than annoyed. "You're in the wrong room," she said. Marcus tried to speak casually. "I was looking for city survey records." "No," she said. "You were looking for this room." That shut him up. The old woman stepped inside and pulled the door closed behind her. Her eyes moved to the open folder, then to Marcus, then to the symbol on the wall. "You found Halden," she said. Marcus tightened his grip on the papers. "You know what this is?" "I know what people think it is." That's not what I asked. For the first time, the corner of her mouth moved like she almost respected him. No, she said, it isn't. She crossed the room slowly and took the folder from him. Marcus almost stopped her, but something in her calm made him wait. She looked at the letter, then sighed. Every 20 or 30 years, somebody finds enough crumbs to make a mess of themselves. A mess? That's what I said. I made the line respond. The old woman went still. Marcus knew immediately he had said too much. Her face changed, but only slightly. The librarian mask slipped, and something older looked through. When? Last night. Where? Marcus hesitated. She stepped closer. Boy, if you opened a line and you don't know what answered, this is not the moment to be mysterious. He hated being called boy. He also hated that she was right. Northridge, he said. Near the old marker. The place marked Aurum. Her expression hardened. You went to Aurum alone? I didn't know it was a place people had rules about. It isn't the rules that matter. What matters? She leaned in. What followed you back? Marcus felt his stomach drop. The room hummed. Barely. So faint he might have missed it before, but now he heard it. A tone beneath the floor, low, patient, familiar. The old woman heard it too. She closed her eyes, and for a moment Marcus saw fear pass across her face. Not panic, recognition. She opened her eyes. What did you bring with you? Nothing. That's rarely true. I didn't bring anything. Objects are not the only things that travel. Marcus thought of the moment the world folded. The golden threads, the feeling of being seen by something ancient. Then he remembered something else. For one impossible second during the opening, he had not been standing alone. There had been a shape in the distortion. Not a person, not an animal. A silhouette made of absence, watching from the other side of the fold. He had dismissed it as fear, but the hum below the floor seemed to know better. The old woman placed the Halden folder back into the drawer and locked it with a key from her ring. Who are you? Marcus asked. Someone who knows why this room was unlabeled. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get today. She pulled a thin black book from the rolling shelf and pressed it against his chest. Read this. Not here. Not out loud. Not near running water, bells, transformers, old churches, railroad crossings, or stone foundations. Marcus looked down at the book. There was no title on the cover. Only a gold line running from top to bottom, like a road, like a vein, like a scar. What is it? A warning. He opened the cover. The first page held only one sentence. The first passage is never taken by the traveler alone. The hum beneath the floor deepened. Somewhere above them, in the ordinary library, a child laughed. A printer jammed. A chair scraped. Life continued, stupid and bright and unaware. But in the little room below the library, Marcus understood that Chapter 1 of his work had been about finding the door. Chapter 2 was about learning what had come through it. The old woman unlocked the door and pushed him into the hallway. Go home, she said. Salt your threshold. Break no glass. Burn no ash. Strike no tone. For how long? She looked past him, toward the stairwell. Until you stop hearing it. Marcus opened his mouth to ask what she meant. Then he heard it again. Not beneath the floor this time, behind his own heartbeat. A second rhythm, not his. The old woman whispered one final instruction before closing the door. And Marcus. He looked back. She knew his name. Of course she knew his name. Do not dream of gold tonight. The door shut, and the lock clicked. Marcus stood alone in the basement hallway, holding the black book against his chest, while the hidden song of the earth followed him like a shadow.